So for my 50th year, I decided I wanted to do something meaningful to raise 50,000 US dollars for the Good Shepherd sisters.
Welcome to YanaTV, a talk show to amplify the voices of impactful and conscious people of Singapore. Today our guest is Delphineang. Thank you so much for joining us, Delphine. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio.
Thank you, Yana, for having me. I'm super delighted and honored. And I have a question, and that is, how do you choose your guests?
This is a great question. It's a great start of our conversation. Largely based on my instinct, like my gut feeling, that I just have this feeling that this person would be a good fit for the show.
Right.
And then I do have those two parts that whatever they do or their life or their message, it has to be impactful and conscious. So for them to come here and talk. And I also like to have variety of people. So it means it could be Singaporean, PRs, expats, or people who may be here like on the long term, past documents, and also just the whole variety of races, nationalities, religions. So it becomes like a very holistic show where we just look at Singapore from different sides of different people.
And that kind of remind me of this thing that I read on Facebook. We are like books. Most people judge us by our cover. A few read our introduction. Majority believe the critics, and very few read our content. So I really appreciate that you take this opportunity to get to know me by asking me questions rather than just checking me on Facebook or LinkedIn, because if you check those, it's not impressive.
Well, to me, you are impressive as a person because I know a little bit about your story, and that's why I would love to share it today on camera. Thank you for showing up today.
Yeah.
Delphine,
Yes.
so you were born in Singapore.
Yes, made and produced in Singapore.
Okay. Which part of Singapore?
Singapore is really small. So if I really have to quantify, the place is actually Punggol. That is like the north area of Singapore.
Okay, so in Punggol. And what school did you go to?
My primary school was CHIJ Punggol, like convent school. Yeah, also in the north area. After that, I went to a secondary school, which is the Methodist Girls' School. And then I went to Victoria Junior College, and then I went to the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore.
And so, just listening to this, right? So I'm assuming you're coming from a family of believers.
Yes.
Right? So what church do you go to?
I'm a Catholic, so
yes.
Not currently, because I left church for 10 years before coming back. So I am with the St. Francis Xavier Church, but I also go to the Immaculate Heart of Mary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I always love to go to those places in different parts of the world because I just felt the energy is just very light, you know, wherever you are, closer to divine spirit in any words that we describe it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Sometimes to check into our supernatural intelligence, and that comes, for me, it comes from God.
Beautiful. You have a lot of interesting things in your life, and I just would like to, you know, touch upon just a little bit. Well, one that was really interesting for me when I met you, you have four children, right?
Yes, that's right.
And so 3 children, what age?
Okay, my eldest is 21, and then 19 years old, 16 years old, and then by God's grace, I have another one who is now at 3 years old. So I delivered during COVID.
Yes, and you delivered at the age of what, 47?
47.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
they say you're so brave, or like, there's nothing brave about it. I just make sure I take good care of myself and deliver a healthy baby, and trust that by God's grace that the baby will be healthy.
And she is okay.
Yeah, she's okay.
Yes, exactly. So I would just remember, I mean, it's such an unusual example because, I mean, women these days, I mean, it's very normal that some women choose to have children, others may choose not to have children, and you know, whatever you do, it's entirely your personal choice. But it is not very common still when we hear women giving birth after 45.
Yes, that's
so
right.
that's why your story was just very interesting for me to, I'm like, wow, she's amazing in that. So there are no limitations really. And we just had an interview with Wayne Chan before, Singapore, and we were just discussing the reproduction rate in Singapore. And he was saying that, look, people don't have enough children, and here you are having 4 kids. So there is hope for Singaporeans.
10 years before I delivered this baby was my last pregnancy, which ended in a miscarriage. So I did have a lot of anxiety through my pregnancy, but at the same time, because of my faith, I also believe that my child will be all right. Yeah, and recently I caught up with some classmates from junior college, and there was this person keep saying, "Oh, so your daughter is an accident. Your daughter is an accident." I was a little bit offended. I said, "She's not an accident. She is a blessing to me, and she is a huge blessing to all of us in our family, and she brought our family together."
This is so wonderful. You just turned 50, and you decided to have an unusual present for your 50th. So tell us what it is.
Yeah, so for my 50th year, I decided I wanted to do something meaningful. So I'm going on a speaking tour with Together We Can Change the World. And we self-fund this tour. We get to speak, and the registrations collected at this event will be channeled to different charities in Asia to help disadvantaged children and women. And for myself, I also make it a personal goal to raise $50,000 for the Good Shepherd sisters. I was listening to this audiobook, and it says that what is one thing that you felt it was impossible to do? Go for it. It's an invitation from God. And I remember my husband, when he turned 50 last year, he shaved his head, and he managed to raise $5,000 for the Hair for Hope for the cancer patient. And I thought, okay, even I shaved my head off a few times, I don't think I can raise that kind of money, but it's a leap of faith because I feel it's really important for me to do something that will leave a legacy behind. And I want to inspire my daughter, my children, that nothing is impossible. So something that scares me is also something that beckons me. So that is why I decided that this is a tour I wanted to do, and I wanted to raise $50,000. Yeah.
And for those people who are watching it right now and listening to it and thinking, well, you guys in Singapore is one of the most, richest and expensive country in the world. I mean, who cares about $50,000? So we just spoke just on the previous episode that Singapore has different sides, and there are some people who have a lot of money, and for them 50,000 means nothing. And there are a lot of other people, especially Singaporeans, for whom it's a huge amount, right?
Yes.
And so I just want to say that for Delphine, because I know your life and I know your story, it's an unimaginable amount of money. And so how has it been going with the raising process?
Well, I think in about 2 months, I've managed to raise 17,000. That's US dollars. That's about 35%. And actually, what really inspired me and touched my heart was one of my friends who just lost her husband last year through a heart attack. It was a sudden death. And the husband was about in his early 40s, and he left behind 4 children. When she saw my call for donation, what I was going to do with the money, she was my biggest donor. She straight away, she donated $2,500. She said, you know what? This is something small compared to what the money can do to those you are helping. And do your magic. Let it multiply. I was inspired and touched by people who donated that kind of money. Of course, we said no amount is too small, but her big-heartedness, her generosity really touched me. And she didn't come from a well-to-do family, and she said that I think my husband, Sean, will be happy that we are able to bless others this way.
I'm having goosebumps when you're sharing this, and I mean, I have done all kind of work in my life, including charitable and philanthropical work, and it is actually true, even like from my experience watching people, often people who have less donate more, and those who have a lot donate much less.
But I come to realize that I should not have any expectations, just like how my friends have supported me in such a big way. Let's not just focus on people who have disappointed, but people who have surprised me. So I've been surprised in so many ways when I do this fundraising in a good way.
I really like the story about your little daughter. I mean, that was the one that really got my attention, you know. And then these beautiful banners that you are doing, this fundraiser to help people. I think it's an amazing work, and so thank you for doing that. And guys, please, you know, if you can, there will be links. Do donate, do support Delphine, because I think it's very important. And we just spoke with another guest, the importance of redistributing resources in the society. And so if we all do that and we help as much as we can, this is how we create just more balance and less this disparity, right? Okay, so another question. Since we are in Singapore, you're a Singaporean, I'm just curious, how is your experience in terms of Singapore development in the last maybe 20, 30 years?
Wow.
Honestly.
Well, I would say that sometimes we want our country to be very developed. Yes, there are a lot of pros and advantages it becoming more developed countries, but there are also a lot of social costs to that. And I feel that sometimes there's the unintended consequences that we are not prepared for. For example, the cost of living is one of them, and I think in the pursuit for excellence, we also have lost the ability to connect with people. That is something very close to my heart, the ability to connect with people, because everyone is so busy doing and going after stuff that they forget to slow down and to appreciate the people that they have in their lives and the things that they have in their lives.
When we talk about connecting with people, I feel it's not just Singapore or just this part of the world. If you look around it feels like in the last 20, 30 years, the whole world just becoming busier and faster. And it's literally like the time is speeding up, and people have been just spending less and less time together within the families. But then ironically, COVID came, pandemic came, everyone was forced to stay at home for 2-3 years and rediscover this. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you, but I traveled around the world in the midst of the pandemic. It just happened this way. I happened to have a sabbatical that was completely unplanned in the middle of the pandemic. So I traveled around the world and went through more than 20 countries in 1 year during 2021 and 2022, and it was amazing for me how much people wanted to connect after being apart for those several years. There was like such a heightened sense of human appreciation.
I mean, it's so amazing that you mentioned this. Recently I caught up with a friend, and he mentioned that he did an event. There's a TEDx event in Australia, designed by AI, marketed by AI, and delivered by AI. And so he was the one who led and facilitated the discussion for that night. And asked him, so what is the main thing you got out of it? And he said the summary of the night is the humans who attended the event wanted the AI to be more human.
Of course.
To have more connections. And I thought, if the AI could be so human and they can replace us, will you be happy? Like, you have an AI to replace Yana. I'll be very sad if an AI can replace me totally.
You know, we just had this conversation actually at home with my bonus son, who is 19 years old, and he is very fascinated, like his entire generation, with technology and AI. I understand why he wants to do this in terms of just going into this whole industry, but then we were like futuristically speaking, well, one day we're all gonna have chips in our heads, and so this is how we're moving into this more like robotic future. And I remember me and my husband looking at each other, and we were like, are we old? Why are we afraid of this? Is it how our parents used to feel about social media before it came?
Brain science tells us that we humans are social creatures hardwired for connections. We have a lot more connections, but are less connected. So we are allowed into believing like the number of Facebook friends, the likes that we receive on Instagram, social media linking and the number of followers equals to the kind of relationships that we enjoy, and that's not true. A friend shared with me that there was this social influencer from US who has like 50,000 followers, and she decided, hey, I got a good number of followers, I should sell this t-shirt and make some money. So she launched it, and guess how many t-shirts she sold?
Well, since you're saying it, I'm guessing 0, right? Since you're bringing it.
50,000 followers, but 0 sale. And she was devastated. So that has an impact on the self-esteem and self-worth. So when I talk about, this charity drive that I have, when I look at my, as I mentioned earlier on, 500 over followers as compared to some of the other speakers. I heard that some have up to 55,000 followers, and I was scared, like, do I dare to put myself out there? What if I cannot raise even a few $100s? And I realized that the number of followers sometimes on social media doesn't tell the full story. It's really the quality of relationship that we have with different people that make a difference.
I have been noticing that in the last 3 years, people tend to move more now again back into the human connection, and they want to deepen relationships.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that comes up from the pandemic. I mean, I don't like the part that there are people who lost their lives, their businesses, even the family members. But in every crisis, there's a Chinese saying, 危机, there's an opportunity in every crisis. And when I saw the pandemic, in a way, I also look at what good comes out of it. People actually get to be more connected, and the level of empathy goes up. And here we are complaining about not being able to go out, not being able to meet up with friends. But if we think about it, there are some of those war zone countries. This is what they've been going through. So in a way, it casts a spotlight on us being more, having more empathy for those who are suffering. Without the pandemic, it could be war zone countries, it could be family struggles. People are not talking to one another. So in a good way, we are also learning to appreciate that what we have. In the past, we just breathe in air. It's free. And I remember reading that there was this gentleman, he was about 70 plus, and he was hospitalized, and he got COVID, and he had to have like oxygen tank or whatever. And then at the end, he was given a bill, and he cried when he saw the bill. So they said, what is it? Is it so expensive, the bill that shocked you? He said, no, for all my life, I breathe, and it's all free. I've never appreciated, and I just stayed in the hospital for like a few days, and it cost so much. I've taken so many things for granted. Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful reminder in general for everyone to just look at our lives and see everything that you already have and everything that you already appreciate. Yeah. And like this conversation that we're having with you today, Delphine, it's just to me again a reminder how blessed we are. I mean, look, we are in Singapore. Look at us, like so we look so different and like same but different.
Yes.
And which leads me then to another question for someone who is like a Singaporean, how do you feel about, again, foreigners and people like me coming here and becoming Singaporeans, or just, staying here in relatively small country?
Well, in the past, I would say when I see people who are very different to me, I would like, no. And especially there are some people who intimidates me with their presence. But I realized that now, the more different they are, the more I want to get to know about them. Because I feel the way we grow is also to expand our circle of friends, listening to different perspectives, get to hear other people's stories. Growing up with the same kind of friends, the same neighborhood, we think the same way. So that's how we our mindset becomes smaller and smaller. But we get to speak to different people from different parts of the world. Our minds expand. So now I actually welcome those opportunities to get to know people who are very different from me, because there's always so much I can learn from them. So getting to know people from different countries, different parts of the world, make me a smarter person.
To be more welcomed in Asia, and this is what I always said, specifically in Singapore, it always felt like a home because people are just very curious. And
Yes.
I feel as the time goes by, they're just becoming more and more curious, and
Yes.
it really relaxes you. And then, I mean, look at us, when you feel welcomed, you want to do something, you want to give back, right?
Yes,
And this
yes.
is one of the reasons why we are having this talk show. It is my way of giving back to the country. It has been
thank you.
very generous to me and my family. So I feel at least I can do is to amplify the voices of people here.
Being curious is good. I mean, being curious when we ask questions, and that's where we get to know people's stories. And I there's this quote, I can't remember, I think it's about Margaret Wheatley, where she talked about, you cannot hate anyone whose story you know. You cannot hate anyone whose story you know.
The final question for today. What is one advice would you like to give to your kids?
When I gave birth to my children, when I was pregnant with my first one, I was so super excited, like, what are the things I want to teach her? She become a mini-me. But have 4 children, I felt I learned so much from them. And if we learn to humble ourselves, to learn from our children, they are like our mirrors. And my eldest, I remember, we were always having these arguments, and she was about maybe 10 years old or so. And so I was waiting for her to finish. And then she said, Mom, you don't listen. You don't listen to understand. You listen to respond. Wow. So when you ask me what advice, I don't want it to be the words that come out from my mouth. I rather inspire my children with how I live my life, which is why I'm going for this tour. And I set an example for my daughter that even at 50 years old, 60 years old, you have dreams, and go for your dreams. And I'm so thankful for my second daughter and my son who said, Mom, go. We'll look after the little one while you go. And I felt like so touched that much as I give to them, I'm receiving from them. So that question about what advice, I would say, I'd rather let the way I live my life be an inspiration to them, be an advice in real life rather than in words. Because words sound so lame sometimes.
Thank you so much, Delphine. And that was Delphine on YanaTV. You're so honest. It's incredible. I really love it. I love your sharings and I love your story. And guys and girls and everyone else, please connect with us in the comments, and we will include the link for donations. I would love to support you with this. So if you can, please do support your cause and just connect with Delphine in general, and share with us in the comments also about your journey and maybe other projects that you're doing. So let's say if you are raising money for something else in Singapore or the region and you're looking for donors, please post the links of your initiatives and let people read it and see if we can collectively just redistribute resources. And subscribe to the channel. So thank you very much, and see you next time with another guest.
Thank you.
And actually, I don't even know if you're on social media because I haven't checked.
Oh, that's my weakness, you know, with all that craze of social media. And I was thinking I should beef it up, but I'm just not into it, yeah.
It's okay, you see, so that's maybe the other, also just an example, you don't necessarily need to have tons and tons of followers on social media to appear on YanaTV, right? So just do something meaningful with your life and you will be right here.